Women clearly stand out among the definitive groups of society with which globalization's impact has been most worth talking about. Few people will argue that significant transformation in gender relations globally is not the result of women's rights. With the push of the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women and numerous global conferences, the awareness of women's rights has significantly advanced globally. On the contrary, while much has been accomplished on this subject, there still remains an extensive amount yet to be achieved. The phenomenon on globalization raises more questions in this journey, specifically on the platform of economics, because of its complexities in the mixing of politics and culture. Nevertheless, the countries that have embraced liberal economic policies have seen a large number of women entering the workforce.
It's hard to believe just how recently it was so completely different. In just one generation, China has gone from one extreme to another. In 1949, the Communist Party swept to power, vowing to liberate women from the shackles of male domination. It shut down the brothels that had treated them as commodities. It gave women the power to divorce their husbands. The state encouraged women to do the same jobs as men, even to wear the same clothes. In many ways, it was epic hypocrisy. Women wound up doing all the housework as well as factory and farm work, but in theory the workforce was gender-free. By the late 60s, at the height of Mao Zedong's Cultural Revolution, it was hard to tell women from men.
Imagine a generation or generations that grew up without ever seeing a single ad, without ever seeing a sex symbol, or nor having a concept of a sex symbol. And to today's world in China, everything is about sex appeal. I think it's a huge change.
But in the market at large, it's plastic beauty that's a growth industry. Since China reopened for business, it's been flooded with fashion chains, beauty parlours, cosmetic counters, bridal shops and gymnasiums. Economic reform has certainly brought more choice and, for some, opportunity.
But in the meantime, you also find a lot of women really driven and independent, modern. I think you find both, but when we were growing up, that was not a concept even, to find a man who supports your lifestyle. So it was just never a choice in our mind. But today it is, and there are many who does make that choice.
And that's where men like Dr. Xia come in. He's done his leg stretching operations about 700 times on girls as young as 16. He says the job market and fashion ensure a steady supply of patients.
I think it's scary. It's really scary that, astonishes me that how could people feel so insecure that about their height that they have to inflict such kind of pain on themselves.
And it's hard not to hear a faint echo of something imperial China practiced, foot binding. For centuries, high-born women bound their daughters' feet, crippling them to satisfy a male taste in beauty. So is leg stretching the new communist equivalent? It's a time of breathtaking change in the world's most populous country, but it seems women's lives will continue to be shaped by men.
Anthropologist and feminist Hill Gates, after venturing across China's countryside many times by boat, train, bus, car, bicycle, and foot to obtain a deeper understanding of Chinese women to contemporary China's economic boom and the impact globalization has had on the commodization of these women, wrote, "The economy of late imperial or early modern Chinese society, China, from the 10th century to the end of the 19th, was constructed around another illusion, one fundamental to pre-industrial patriarchal states. Unlike men, women were more like things than people. Men could, and frequently did, exchange their female kin for money, whether in marriage, adoption, or sale into slavery or prostitution. From the Song Dynasty, 1960, 1279 forward, households increasingly treated women like commodities." The Economic and Social Council of the United Nations has been taking steps to consolidate the goals of economics with those of social development. In a summary conducted by this UN entity entitled Executive Summary of the World Survey on the Role of Women in Development, the outline expresses that in some of those countries, the increase in female employment represents a huge leap forward in women's engagement in the money economy. The development of this market can have both a negative and positive aftermath for women because of women's positions and their relations with men. The positive effects of women in this regard would be more employment opportunities, meaning more earnings, therefore their direction and role in the household and in society is more controlled by them. The downside of this market could in fact increase the exploitation of females in the labor force, particularly in the low-skill sectors where the markets are searching for cheaper labor and production. According to the UN News Center article entitled UN Joins China in Launching New Small Business Fund to Empower Women, dated September 14, 2011, the United Nations on this day joined Chinese groups in launching a new small business fund that seeks to further empower women in the world's most populous country. UN Development Program Associate Administrator Rebecca Greenspan said at the launch in Beijing of the new partnership between the All China Women's Federation, Mary Kay China, and UN Development Program, investing in women and girls is not only the right thing to do, but the smart thing to do from a social and economics point of view. All studies clearly suggest that one of the main accelerators to achieve all the Millennium Development Goals is investing in women and girls and through the political and economic empowering of women. Greenspan added, of the 8 ambitious targets set by the UN Millennium Summit in 2000 to slash hunger and poverty, maternal and infant mortality, a host of diseases, and lack of access to education and health care, all by 2015. Yet, despite this progress, women across the country and indeed throughout the world are still less empowered than men, be it economically, politically, or socially, she said. There is no country in the world that has achieved gender equality, and as in China, we find all around the globe women being disadvantaged with respect to salary differentials, labor force participation, access to social protection, access to property rights, political representation, and the challenge of gender-based violence, she added. She blamed the invisibility and undervalue of women's role and their contribution to society and the blindness of many policies and decisions for the persistence of inequality. That is why we are convinced that progress will be slow if we leave it to a natural evolution, she added. We need to help progress by coming together, educate, and raise awareness of women's needs and valuable contributions to society and to progress, recognizing that the form and evolution of this progress will be specific to each context. Let's take a closer look at what steps are being taken for women in China to overcome the commodization and the reshaping of their cultural identity with regard to the impact of globalization.
Unconventional, opinionated. That's what Wu Qing is, and that's what she wants these women to be. You must matter, she tells them. You must be independent.
They should know there are alternatives. You don't change overnight. It takes time. The ideas have to sink in.
They are school teachers from the countryside, here for workplace training but also to learn more about themselves. This morning they're going over the Chinese constitution to know their rights and responsibilities. Men and women are equal under the law here. And Mao Zedong once said, women hold up half the sky. But Wu Qing says there is a long way to go.
There are more job openings. Women have entered men's domain. That is true. And yet, women are not paid the same. Right? And because women tend to be in dead-end jobs.
Wu Qing hopes these women will go back home to the countryside and spread the message of empowerment.
You come to believe you are not as good as men, but I hope that when I return to my town, I will have the strength to stand up for myself.
I've learned here that I'm a human being first and a woman second. We are not the weaker sex. We can be independent and strong.
There are very few places like this in China, so women come here from around the country for training and education and to learn that equality could be a reality.
Getting to a time when women will have equal opportunities looks far off. Ni Hua also spent time at the training center. She never completed primary school, was illiterate, and had to learn the very basics in order to land this job.
In my hometown, there are many girls who want to leave, to get out, but can't. I seized my opportunity and I feel so lucky to be where I am.
Ni Hua is happy, but it does reflect the society she lives in, where a girl is thankful for a lifetime career as a waitress. Or the other major occupation for lower-income women in China, being a factory girl. Repetitive, mind-deadening work. All this will take time to change. Until women have better access to education, their options will remain limited. For Wu Qing, the change comes group by group. And before they leave, she will have said many times over that a woman's right is a human right.